120. Hey darts fans, Jose de Souza, eat your heart out, my friend. Hey, Timo Newman here, the transporter. Welcome to Undarted Waters. This is another video in this series on which segment should anyone aim for. And I've been promising to tell you about this very sad result, the sting in the tail that I've been talking about. Just to recap from the last video, and if you haven't seen it, you probably might take a look before this one just to give you more of an idea what's going on. But I showed what are the best segments to aim for to get the highest score you can based on your accuracy. And the bottom line is only go for 20s if your accuracy at that 20 segment is better than 2 darts out of 3. If your accuracy is between roughly 1 dart in 2 and 2 darts in 3, you need to be going for the 19s, because when you spray, you're getting 7s and 3s and not 1s and 5s. If your accuracy is a bit below a half, the big result was 7. 7 mathematically is the best segment for you, all the way down to maybe a real beginner if your accuracy is less than 1 dart in 5. So 4 darts out of 5 go astray, not from the segment you want. You need to be in the 1s, okay? That's based on some simple assumptions. You can add some more complicated things to this analysis of which segment you should aim for, but that's kind of the simplest set of results. I'm happy to go into all the details on that if there is interest from people that view this channel, and I'm really happy to do that. But every time I've talked about this, I've been talking about a very sad result, the sting in the tail. Here it is. Let me talk about it now, and let me try and get you to think about why this is going to happen. Let's imagine that we always aim for the 20 segment no matter what. If you've got a player with a very high accuracy aiming for the 20 segment, their typical score, or their average score per dart, is going to be high, roughly around 20. Now and again, they might hit a 1 or a 5, but roughly their average score per dart is going to be around 20. Now, we're not caring about doubles or trebles here. You just get the score of the segment for the point of this discussion. Okay, doubles and trebles don't matter for these results. So in terms of putting doubles and trebles aside, your average score for that good player is going to be roughly 20. But as we get players with lower and lower accuracy, as that accuracy comes down, then their average score is going to come down, okay? Because they're going to get more 1s and 5s. Now, on the other hand, if you have a player of very high accuracy who's aiming for 1s, perversely, their typical average score is going to be around 1, okay? And as their accuracy goes down, their score is going to go up, because they're going to start spraying and hitting 18s and 20s. So if you think about accuracy going up in this direction, so going from poor accuracy to high accuracy, okay, then for a player that always goes for the 20 segment, their average score looks like that. It's high when their accuracy is high, it's low when their accuracy is low. On the other hand, if you go for the 1s, at low accuracy, you're going to have a high score, and at high accuracy, you're going to have a low score because you're aiming at 1s. Let's put those two curves together and see what happens. If you're around 50% accuracy, your average score is going to be quite low, lower than either end, and that's the sad result. I've got it in more detail here for you guys. So I hope you can see this, everyone. Let me just get a bit closer here. So what I've done is looked at, this is for amateur players really, because the pros are going to have accuracies above 80%, but for we mere mortals, okay, I've looked at accuracy quite high, like 80%, coming down all the way down to, say, a beginner around 20%. And based on what I was saying last time, these are the best segments. So you want to absolutely maximize your score. You need to be going for these segments. So the high accuracy players need to be aiming at the 20s. If you're above a half 50% accuracy 19s. Otherwise 7 is the magic number until you get really quite inaccurate, and then you should be going for 1s. But what I've done is I've written in here from the maths, what is your average score per dart? And remember, we don't care about trebles and doubles here, okay? We just pretend that if you get the dart in the segment, you just get the number value of that segment. I can talk about how the trebles come into this later, but they don't make much difference, to be honest, okay? Most darts for players that are not very accurate are not going to be in the trebles, so it's really a moot point, okay? So what you can see is, as we talked about, as you become less accurate, your average score per dart comes down until you get to 50%. But look, horror, it starts going up again. It starts going up again. This means that a player who is very weak with accuracy, who knows which segment to aim for, they know they should be going for the 1 or the 7, they're going to outscore a player whose accuracy is 50%, who the best they can do is go for 7s. If they were going for 20s, they would actually have a much lower average score per dart. So the very best that a player of 50% accuracy can do is go for 7s, and that's the best score they can hope to get per dart. But it's lower than a better player, and it's lower than a worse player, as long as that worse player is aiming for the right segment. And this is the tragedy. Okay, let me show it a different way. This is a much simpler way of thinking about it. I've got 3 different accuracies. Someone that scores the right segment, the one they're aiming for, 2 out of 3 times. So they would be going for the, say, the 20s or the 19s. Someone who only gets the segment 1 out of 2 times, they would be going for the 7s. Remember, that's the best they can do. If they go for 19s or 20s, it's going to be worse, right? And someone who only gets the segment 1 out of 3 times, they will definitely be aiming for 7 if they know what to do from these videos. But look at the average score per dart. This poor person here who's getting 50% accuracy does worse than the better player. They do worse than the worse player in terms of their scoring. And it's actually really quite sad, because if you just put a blindfold on and throw at the board, then your average score is going to be per dart 10.5 if you don't care about doubles and trebles. And the reason for that is you're going to just randomly hit 1s, 2s, 3s all the way up to 20s, and the average of those 20 numbers is 10.5. And look, if you're a 50% accuracy player, remember, this is the best you can do. You cannot do better than this on average. It's impossible. If you're a 50% accuracy player, that's the best you can do. You'll be aiming for 7s. You're only 17% better than playing with a blindfold on. And the bloomin' player who's worse, who only gets the right segment 1 out of 3 times, as long as they know where to aim, namely at 7s, they're doing significantly better. They're going to outscore this 50% player. Okay, so as I said before in last time's video, if someone is a 50% accuracy player, actually, if the people who play them know what they're doing, they will always outscore them. And so if you're a 50% accuracy player, you're pretty much playing with a blindfold on, even though you're actually, that's not actually a bad accuracy. It's just tragically the worst possible in terms of your scoring if your opponents know where to aim for. Or rather, aim is a funny word for people that actually can't hit what they're aiming for, but they're still going to outscore that 50% player if they're aiming for the right segments, okay? So I'm going to make just a very short video in the next day or 2 with a bit more of the sting in the tail, because it's kind of even worse actually than this, although this is really, really bad. And for folks who are saying, hang on, this doesn't make any sense because you're not talking about doubles and trebles, I can go into that for sure, but it actually doesn't affect what these best segments are, okay? It will affect what the average score per dart is. We can go into all of that, but it doesn't affect the basic conclusion. Right, so that's it, folks. I hope that was instructive. I think what it means, though, for folks whose accuracy is between 40 and 60%, you've just got to improve that to get away from essentially being a blindfolded player in terms of what your average scoring is. And I think it just means I was at the board practicing. If you can get that accuracy above 70%, then you'll be aiming for 20s to maximize your score, and you'll be doing much better than a worse player or a blindfold player. Okay, so this is Timo Newman, the transporter, signing out. Thanks ever so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. All the best.